AATBirds Weekly Report is the Eagle news, notes, and analysis you need.
Go back. He looks, fires for the end zone. Intercepted. The 20, the 10, the 5. Touchdown. Matt Ware. Midfield. He's going to go. Deshaun Jackson. He steps up his head and falls forward. And he fumbles the football, and the Eagles have it. It's gone. And the Eagles win.
It's all birds. All the time.
And welcome to AATBirds Weekly Report on a special night, Thursday night. We are doing the show not yesterday. We had a couple things come up, so decided to switch it off to Thursday. Going to talk a little about the Eagles. The Eagles need to get right. It's kind of what the emphasis of this show is. We're going to be talking about, what do we need to see in these next 4 weeks going into a playoff push? What do we need to see from this team? I do want to touch on a couple of different injury aspects of certain players, maybe potentially getting a return of a certain player. So a couple of things to get in mind while we, preview the Seattle Seahawks matchup upcoming. But Chip, how are we doing here? I know it's not good. 2 straight losses. Haven't had that in a very long time when we're doing this show, this podcast. So it's a little bit new territory from I think it's 2 years ago that we had.
Because not since Jalen Hurts took over. So
it's been a very long time, but apparently the sky's falling if you listen to any type of radio or read any type of anything. But what do you think?
I'm not going to go sky falling.
Well, a lot of people are.
Well, because they're stupid.
What's up, Adam?
Adam was just watching. So, look, the fact of the matter is that what this Eagles team is, they got to fix some things. You start with the offensive side of the ball, and Brian Johnson is just doing this team absolutely no favors. They have completely abandoned the run game. They are making Jalen Hurts be a pocket quarterback. They are not using Jalen Hurts to the best capability. Which was the same issue we talked about with San Francisco. It was the same issue that we're going to talk about with Dallas. The turnovers continue to be a problem. They have plagued us this entire season. So that's issue number 1. Issue number 2 is we have no defensive strategy if we do not get to the quarterback. And we got completely exposed in all facets of the game. And we've now put ourselves in a position where we were the clear front runners for the number 1 seed to, will we even win the NFC East, or we're going to host a home playoff game? Now, we definitely have the more favorable schedule moving forward, but I don't like that we've lost 2 blowout games to NFC opponents. We ran the gauntlet. We beat the AFC opponents, which I actually thought were going to be the tougher problems. And now we're in the parity of the elite in the NFC. And we've answering everybody's questions of, hey, is this team good enough? Well, we still don't know because they still haven't played a full game. It is week 15 and we still haven't played a full game. That's got to be addressed.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think, when you really look at it, like the offense, especially on Sunday night, it wasn't like they weren't moving the ball. It's the issue of what we mentioned.
It was turnovers.
The turnover aspect really killed them because, they give up the touchdown to start the game and they go all the way down the field and then Jalen fumbles. And then if you want to look at, they go into half 24-6, down 24-6. Coming out of the half, they're moving the ball, and AJ fumbles, over the 50-yard line into Cowboys territory. I think the Cowboy 36 or 37. And then, of course, later on in the game, you had the Devontae. But I think the one main thing was after they got the sack, fumble, scoop score from Jalen Carter, it was 24-13. Dallas went down, and they got a field goal, 27-13. Eagles had the ball back, and they throw that deep pass to Devontae, and it hits him in the hands. And
Jalen could not have thrown a better ball.
Yeah, and of course, earlier in the game, you had the AJ Brown drop. Again, that's going to happen because what has happened early in the year with teams dropping the ball and helping the Eagles, it happens. And you like to look at it and say, hey, if this happened, it could have changed the game. It could have did this. It could have also been said in some of the Eagles wins. If the opposite team would have caught the ball, if it would have went a different way, the game could have went a different way. So, unfortunately, you're on both sides of that when it comes to, winning games and losing games. It is what it is. You have to to me, it's the offense has to not switch it up, but they've got to get into themselves into a rhythm, whether it's run the ball more, whether it's certain types of runs, there's a lot of different things that they need to do. And
I mean, I think you got to look at the whole offense. So again, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about offense because they didn't show up. I mean, there's just no way around it. The offense did not show up. And
the defense scored more than the offense.
The kicker scored more than the team. Yeah. So, I mean, let's just talk about that. The fact that the kicker for Dallas scored more than our entire team.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple things that have to be addressed. Number one, Brian Johnson's play calling is pathetic. It is absolutely pathetic. It is everything that is wrong with this team at this moment. So the routes are boring. The only time that our receivers are getting excited is on fly routes. But the routes, and I said this on a show that I was just on, the only routes that they're running are simple routes that a high school cornerback could cover. And they're just hoping that our receivers out athletic the guy that they're going against. And that's not going to work in the NFL. I don't know. Crazy thought. Throw in a double move now and then. Just for poops and giggles.
But you also have to have the time to be able to do that.
But that's the thing. A lot of the time, Jalen Hurts does have the time. A lot of the time, he does have the time. He's sitting back there for 5, 6, 7 seconds, and nothing's coming open. And he doesn't know what to do. And you look at Hurts' mechanics again, his feet are all over the place. A lot of the issues, it's going back to fundamentals. So Hurts' mechanics have definitely fallen off, and I think he's favoring the knee. I know that's the case. They've played a lot of games in a lot of days. He was coming off an injury. Jalen Hurts is favoring the knee. The play calling is atrocious. They've got to run the ball. And I say run the ball. I'm not talking about Jalen Hurts running the ball. We have running backs. We have to use them. Jalen Hurts cannot make up 87% of this offense. It just can't happen. You also, on the defensive side of the ball, have to remember how to tackle. And you have to stop turning the ball over. A lot of the things can get right if they clean up the fundamentals. I almost feel.
But how many points? How about this? How many points did they give up in the second half?
This time, I don't know.
Points.
Right. And our defense was absolutely smoked.
In the first half. The second half, they played a lot better. And there were
I'm saying tired. They were gassed.
Yes. And they've been for the last couple of weeks because also, I think what comes into play, the running aspect comes into play in terms of being able to sustain drives. They're not being able to do that because when the defense is playing 75 to 80 to 90 snaps a game over and over and over, it's not going to be beneficial because you're going to have injuries. You're going to have players wearing down, your edge rushers wearing down, certain things that are happening. There is a couple things that I did see that I did like on the defensive side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And it was definitely mentioned by Fran Duffy, who does the Eagles Eye, podcast. He does a lot of good stuff when it comes to all 22, the Eagles, a lot of great content with him. A couple of things that he did was one was Sidney Brown.
He's been playing great.
And Sidney Brown's playing very, very well.
Rookie. He's been playing very well for a rookie.
Coming downhill, making tackles, doing certain things. He had a nice pass breakup on CeeDee Lamb, being able to, run that route. A couple of things that I liked that what I saw. And there's a lot of interesting aspects to the way the defense is being run and what Sean Desai is doing. Now when Reed goes out of the game and Sidney Brown goes in to play, they did have to play Kealy Ringo, and that's why he was on the field. And
he's not ready.
I think they said he's going to play more with Nolan Smith. I think Nolan Smith should play more, but I like Kealy Ringo. And listen, you're not going to learn anything if you're not going to play.
Agreed. And that's why I was going to say that about Nolan Smith. I think Nolan Smith has not done enough.
Yeah, and I think you need more out of him because you need to start preserving Sweat and Reddick because the amount of snaps and the amount of percentage of defensive snaps they're playing is up from what they did last year.
I'm not sure if I'm the one breaking up or Johnny, you're the one breaking up here. So I'm going to give it a second before my internet cuts out. Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that our defense is not doing enough to get anything accomplished. And you mentioned, Johnny mentioned that Sean Desai is doing what he can. We don't have the right personnel. I think that if you look at some of the players that we've lost, especially in the linebacking position over the last couple of years, it's really becoming a problem that we have not invested in the linebacking position. You've got Keagy White doing a great job over for the Cardinals, where he was on a 1-year prove-it deal, and they just let him go. The same thing's going to happen with Zach Cunningham. Zach Cunningham is playing very well on a 1-year prove-it deal, and he's going to be let go. So, again, I was just covering the fact, like, personnel, and especially with the linebackers, is a problem. We are not investing in a key integral position, and you're kind of getting what you get. Even the fact of, Christian Ellis being, hoping to sneak him back onto the practice squad. He was a decent linebacker. You're seeing, Duke Riley had a pretty good game last week for Miami. Again, you've got guys that we should be investing in, not being maintained. And again, if our entire defensive strategy is predicated on, do our guys get to the quarterback on the front 4, front 5, and they don't, we're going to get torched. And we got torched the last 2 weeks.
Listen, I'm not so sure if it's just those guys getting to the quarterback, but it also has to do with when it's 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8, when it's 3rd and long. There was a stat on Sunday night. Eagles' 3rd down to go defense is 7.5 yards average, which is 2nd highest, which is good. You want to have long 3rd and longs because supposed to help your defense. Well, they give up 47% conversion rate, which is the worst in the NFL. Right there is a big, big telltale sign. You can't be playing 6-7 yards off because even if the guy catches the ball at 5 yards to 6 yards and it's a 7, it's 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, they can easily just fall back and
our
potentially
tackling is an abomination right now. It is. I haven't seen this many head down tackles in years.
Listen, when they play so far off and they're not up on the guys, not saying you have to be right there, but if it's 3rd and 8, why not play 2, 3, 4 yards off? Be able to reroute the guy. And the one thing that's really concerning is Sean Desai in his opening press conference.
Johnny's struggling a lot with his Wi-Fi tonight. So we'll talk about the opening press conference when Johnny pops back in. I mean, I think that when you look at this Eagles team overall, the way they have played against 2 integral matchups against teams that they really, I don't say that they had to beat, but they had to look better. And I think that's the biggest frustration. We don't even look competitive. So it lends credence to the argument of, yeah, they've got 10 wins, but who have they really beaten? And there's some truth to that. We've yet to play a full game. And again, we've beaten the Bills, which is phenomenal. We beat them in overtime after spotting them a significant amount of points. We have beaten the Chiefs in overtime, or not in overtime, but after spotting them a significant amount of points with really good teams. And apparently the AFC is not full of great teams this year. With really great teams, you cannot continue to spot these teams all the points that they do. And when they do that against a team like the 49ers, whose offense is exceptionally potent, against a team like the Cowboys, who obviously they're going to go after the Eagles, with an offense that is very capable of putting off points on the Eagles. When you do that, you're not going to be able to play catch up against good teams. Now, I think this matchup with the Seahawks, we have a better chance. Maybe not defensively because the Seahawks have a ton of weapons, but I think offensively we can put up some points, but we really have to. The Eagles have got to get it right at some point. And that's what, the name of this show is. The Eagles need to get it right versus Seattle because they did not look good against Dallas. Javier's got some comments in here. Yeah, the vanilla offense from the preseason looks better than this. I think the bigger concern, not surprised that we lost these last 2 games. Extremely surprised the way we lost. I think that's really the important thing here. This Eagles team, if they are a legitimate number 1 contender, a legitimate number 1 seed, they shouldn't be getting blown out. And maybe you have a bad game and maybe you get blown out by the 49ers. Okay, fine. But you shouldn't be getting blown out 2 weeks in a row. You make adjustments. And this team is not making adjustments. This team is not fixing the things that are wrong. And to me, a lot of it is fundamental. So is it possible that this Eagles team has gotten so cocky with their 10 wins? I don't know. I don't think so. But there are definitely certain things that they weren't doing when they were fighting and winning games. They weren't turning the ball over as much. That has become a huge problem. They were putting up a lot of points and they were outscoring teams. The defense was tackling. We need to start getting turnovers. We are not a very good team at getting turnovers. And again, that's a problem. So moving into this Seattle game, I think that you look at a team like Seattle, who is currently, still in the playoff hunt. They're 6-7, which, again, we're talking about a 10-3 team here with the Philadelphia Eagles. And we haven't clinched anything. Javier, I think that's huge too. It's a huge difference sack-wise from last year. And we have to look at maybe some of the why. I mean, Javon Hargrave is having, once again, a good year over in San Francisco. Because, again, teams invest in certain positions. We invest in our line, which is great. But if we don't get to the quarterback, we've got whoever was on the scrap heap playing linebacker. We've got 2 really good corners. Kevin Byard's a good safety. Reed Blankenship has played well, but he looked pretty exposed on the game against the Cowboys. And then you got rookies all the way down. And Johnny and I are going to talk about this when he eventually gets his Wi-Fi to work. I think that if we can get Avonte Maddox to come back, he's been out for a while and maybe he can return. It's a pretty big get. I think all hope that Shaq Leonard was going to be a bigger get. Maybe he will be, but in week 1 of his career as a Philadelphia Eagle, he didn't do much. He did not do much. So I think that that's worth conversing about as well as Johnny is getting ready to pop back in. I'm super excited.
Yeah, some technical difficulties.
How's your Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh.
We'll see how. But like I was saying before I went off for a while here, I was saying that Sean Desai talked about in his press conference about rerouting receivers and the way he runs things, and the way they're not doing that.
Nope.
When you're playing that far off, you're not doing that kind of stuff. And I just think they have to get a little more, fundamentally sound. We know they need to be.
And but that's what I was talking about in my monologue, is that the fundamentals are a huge problem right now.
And I think the other thing is, we've always been, familiar with them rotating, doing that kind of stuff, but they rotate defensive backs like they rotate pass rushers. And it's just weird. It's different. It's like the opposite. And not that it's really helping them, because no matter who they got back there, it's, I don't know. It's just, I don't get it. And hopefully there's a little bit of a change that goes on that's going to happen. But listen, it starts with Seattle and a very tough Seattle offense, because they have 3 playmaking receivers and a really good tight end in Noah Fant, plus a couple of running backs who are pretty potent. The only thing with them is their offensive line is not very good, but
they're not. So we have to get to the quarterback.
You have to get to the quarterback. You have to be able to stop the run. You're going to have to make them one-dimensional. You're playing in tough Seattle, and the other problem is it looks like there's a 50% chance of rain. So it may be another one of.
Well, I mean, that just tracks for every game that we've played this year.
Game type of matchups, the better part of the last month.
Yeah, I mean, we've played in so much rain, it's ridiculous this year.
Yeah. So, I don't know. So the next part I guess we can touch on is something I mentioned to you when you're looking at the Eagles and this matchup. And I just think this is something, not that they have to go out and demolish them, but I think you need a convincing 10 to 14 point win in a opposing territory, a very tough place to play in Seattle. You haven't won in Seattle in a long time. I think it was 2008, 15 years.
Yeah.
So very, very long time. And that's the last time you beat Seattle in general. So you've never beaten Pete Carroll. So this is it's going to be a tough matchup. They may be 6-7 and they may be on a losing streak, but you can't go in thinking you can just steamroll this team. They're going to have to put together a complete game, which we've been waiting for the whole season. And I think
it's week 15. How are we still waiting on our first complete game?
Yeah. I don't know. I just think they need to, I don't want to have you have a 10 to 14 point lead and all of a sudden with 3 minutes left, it's 3-point game and you have to stop them because, I don't want that kind of a game.
So Javier, they missed Gino last week because of his groin. He's going to be back this week.
Yeah,
the drop off to Drew Lock was something special, but he's definitely playing against the Eagles on Monday night.
Yeah, most likely he is playing. It's gonna be very interesting. Maybe we will see Jason Peters on the offensive line of the Seattle Seahawks.
I think the thing that you mentioned, Johnny, that's really important before I give any thoughts to the archaic, ancient Jason Peters, the fact that man is still playing. I don't know who's older at this point, Pete Carroll or him. We need to win this. So we mentioned that the 49ers was not a must-win game, and they didn't. We mentioned that the Cowboys wasn't really a must-win game. They were both must-compete games, but they certainly weren't most must-win games. This is a must-win game. And you mentioned the complete 60 minutes because we've yet to see it. And looking at the rest of our schedule, while it is extremely favorable playing the Giants twice and the Cardinals once, it goes to that argument of who have we really beaten, right? Who have we really beaten? If you beat this Seahawks team pretty significantly, you get to go, well, we beat the Seahawks pretty significantly, and they're a good team. And we beat the Bills pretty significantly, and they're a good team. We beat the Chiefs pretty significantly, and they're a good team. And I know we didn't beat them significantly, but we won those games. You have to beat this team significantly because the logic is that you're going to absolutely smack around the Giants twice, hopefully. You're going to smack around the Cardinals, hopefully. And the Cowboys are going to run into a tougher end of the year schedule. So just for the sake of confidence building, if you beat bad teams significantly, okay, cool. But you got to beat a good team once in a while too. And you got to beat them without spotting them 17 points at the half.
So, yes and no. They did beat good teams. Yeah, they may not have blown out anybody.
I know, but it wasn't a complete game is my point. They had to come back from significant down.
But again, you still won games against Miami, against Dallas, against Buffalo, against the Chiefs. You still won games against tough opponents. You still have to give them that credit because if you look at the other team, Dallas has a very tough stretch here the next 3 games. At Buffalo, at Miami, Detroit. So, listen, the Eagles have played one of the hardest schedules. And the other teams, I saw someone post, Cowboys played the easiest schedule so far. The Baltimore Ravens played the 3rd easiest, and the Niners played the 9th easiest. So these other teams are playing easier schedules. Now, of course, the Eagles have their easier stretch coming up. Now, I think Seattle 6-7. I still think they're a solid football team. They're not a cakewalk. They're not an easy team.
No.
The Giants and Cardinals are not good.
No,
football
they're
teams.
not good teams.
But again, you can't take anyone for granted because you take a look at Miami losing to Tennessee at home. Like, listen, anything is possible. So you have to go out there, play your game, because you can't just lay down. Teams aren't just going to be like, okay, you can have this win. It just doesn't happen that way. You know that. That's why they say any given Sunday. Any given Sunday means anything can happen. So it's definitely anything can happen. So you just take one game at a time, stack the wins, finish the season, and hopefully get the 1 or 2 seed and go into the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think, again, Javier's saying, we got to go in winning these last 4 games. I agree. We've put ourselves in a position losing these 2 NFC games as handily as we did, where we really do need a statement win. We have yet to have a statement win. We've had statement wins against us.
Yeah.
But we need to come. And again, it's not going to be easy. You mentioned Geno Smith again. I don't think very much of as a quarterback. I think that he's got some really elite weapons that are making him look good. So let's just start with that. But DK Metcalf is an absolute monster. Tyler Lockett is a very, very, very good receiver. Smith and Jigba is a very good number 3 option. Noah Fant is a good tight end. We struggle against good tight ends. And then they have Kenneth Walker. So if we don't get to Geno Smith through their Swiss cheese offensive line, we're going to have problems on our back 7, just like we always do.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be tough. It's not going to be something that's going to be.
But it also has to happen. They have to have made the adjustments this week.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. They have to definitely make the adjustments to be able to be able to be successful on the defensive side of the ball as best as they can. Listen, I want to see more Shaq Leonard because I think Nick Morrow needs to have not as many snaps. You don't want to have him as your focal point in the defense. But again, Leonard has to get himself acclimated to the defense. It doesn't, it's not as clear cut and simple, but I think game by game, he's going to be able to get himself to that point. And another thing, and I mentioned it to you, on the NFL news or whatever you want to call it, CJ Gardner-Johnson, who plays for the Detroit Lions, tore his pec week 2, I believe, and is on designated for return. Yeah. Avonte Maddox tore his pec week 2 on that Thursday night game. He had surgery. They both had surgery. So I know every tear is different. Everybody's recovery is different.
Yep.
But if this is a sign where, I know we did mention it. I don't know if it was like maybe a week or 2 back. We mentioned it because Sirianni has his number on his hat, and has any player ever played. And I think I mentioned Lane Johnson, but again, that was a different scenario when you look at that. But Avonte Maddox, listen, it's been 3 months, potentially, maybe in another 2-3 weeks, they put him as designated for return, or potentially as him coming back for the playoffs, I think would be a huge advantage or
Absolutely
a huge gain on your defensive side of the ball. Not saying it's going to happen, but hey, I think you can be a little optimistic because of the injury happened so early in the season that there's time for healing and there's time to get back on the field. And especially when another player who did have a pec tear coming back, designated for return to come back. I think it's in the next couple of weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Possibly seeing him as a designated for return. I think that would be a huge boost to your secondary to be able to have, a veteran like him back in the fold.
Yeah, I think that, not that this Eagles team has done a terrible job with the secondary, but they definitely need somebody that they trust, somebody that they rely on. And, somebody like Avonte Maddox, I mean, he is, while he may not be a fantastic outside corner, we don't need him to be. We needed him for his slot work. And if you have him and, the guys that you already have, I think that all of a sudden you're a little more competitive and you're not relying on a guy like Keely Ringo in a December matchup against teams that are throwing everything they got at you.
Yeah. No, I agree with you when it comes to that. Absolutely. We're going to get to our last segment and then we're going to put the show on wrap.
Do it.
But before we do that, we have...
It's time for the Ulecka Locks of the week. Who's your lock?
So when we look at the locks of the week, we were both wrong.
So wrong.
I had Shaq Leonard that will out snap Morrow. I think Shaq Leonard snaps, so did not out snap Morrow. And you had the Lions beating the Chicago Bears by 10.
That did not happen.
And that did not happen. The Bears beat the Lions, which they should have beat them a couple weeks ago as well, but they finally finished it off this week, and they beat the Lions. So we both were wrong there.
Shocker.
So that brings us to this week. Hopefully we can get ourselves back on the winning ways, as hopefully we see the Philadelphia Eagles do as well. But what do you have, Chip, as your lock?
I have a lock that the Raiders will score more than 40 points in tonight's game.
Yeah, we can't do that.
No, because they're already at 42-0 at halftime.
Yes.
Damn.
Yes.
That's absurd, by the way, for a team that scored no points last week.
But wait. Does Brandon Staley get fired tomorrow?
Yes. Well, see, again, he's definitely been on the hot seat for the last couple of years because they've been bad. But the excuses that you can do are, well, Herbert's not playing, Keenan Allen's not playing, Eckler's not. Is Eckler playing, or has he been hurt?
I think he's playing, but he just hasn't been playing that well.
I mean, that's just so. Yeah, I don't know. I would say that yes, he gets fired. But for what purpose? You're not actually going to get an accurate seeing of if the interim coach is capable of being successful with the team because you're using Easton Stick.
Easton Stick.
What
I like that name. Hey, where do you go to school?
Hell.
North Dakota State.
There you go. Another one of these crappy ones.
Like your boy
No.
Dub.
Trey Lance.
Trey Lance.
All right. So my lock of the week. I'm looking at these games. There's nothing exciting in these games. What do I want to go with?
There's not there isn't a ton that's really exciting. I will say that. There really isn't, but
the 49ers are playing the Cardinals in Arizona.
Yeah.
The 49ers will hang a 40 spot on the Cardinals.
Points on Arizona. I could see that happening. Definitely could see that happening. Now, for me, I'm going to go with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills will beat the Dallas Cowboys by at least 10 points. By 10 over Dallas.
All right.
Which now brings us to our predictions of the Eagles game Monday night. Go ahead, Chip. What do you think happens in this pivotal matchup?
I think it's very important to know that I do not think very highly of this Seattle defense. I don't think that they're a very good defense. I mean, obviously you've got some good players. I think they've got some good players, but I don't think that they are overall a good team. So if there is ever a bounce back time, it is right now against this less than good defense. So I have the Eagles winning this game 27-24 because I think that the Seahawks offense is going to play very, very well against us.
27-24. So I think, looking at this game, it's going to be a tough matchup. You want to see the Eagles go ahead and, crush this team. But I really just don't see that happening. I just don't see them being able to put up 45 points and, hammer them.
As much as you wish you would.
But I will say the Eagles do get a 10-point win, and they win 31-21 in Seattle. Fly home, feeling good to go in that last stretch of 3 games against the Giants and the Cardinals.
I hope you are right and I am wrong this week because these close games are really doing a number on all of us, and they're close primetime games, so we're already exhausted by the time the games roll around.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you on that. When you're up late like that, and the thing is, you can't sleep. because you're up late, your adrenaline's going, your heart's pounding, you're on the edge of your seat, and then the game's over. You can't just go, all right, let me just lay in the bed and go sleep. What happens is, you turn on the post-game show, you want to listen to what people say, you want to see some interviews, you can't fall right to sleep. You're on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. You're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, you're on whatever. I will put this out. Do not go on Facebook and go to the Eagle groups and look and just list, like, on a post, go down to the comments and read the comments, because it's like hell down there, because it's just, everybody's pissed off about everything. And it's like the angry neighbor who says, get off my lawn, and you're not on their lawn, but you're close enough to it that they're just pissed off. It's just, it's like they find things to have issues with. So I try and stay away from that, because nothing but negative.
It's so bad.
And the thing is, when you have the Eagles, they were 10-1 2 weeks ago, and people were just nitpicking and finding something wrong. They lose 2 games, and now they're the worst team, and they need to fire everybody. And Nick Sirianni's not a good coach anymore. The players aren't as good as we thought they were. It's just, like I said, the sky's falling aspect, which people need to just kind of pump their brakes. Yeah, you don't want to lose the way they lost. They need to regroup. They need to refocus. They need to get themselves back on board and, take the ship where it needs to go. But I just think people need to just settle down, because everything is about, let's fire this, let's do this, let's do this, let's do that. This team stinks. This team never be good. Their window's closed. You have all this garbage that's being spewed, and they just need to focus, regroup, and figure it out. And these last 4 games, they need to finish strong. Go into.
They have to. Number one, they got to beat the bad teams. Let's start with that. They have to beat the bad teams.
Yeah, no, you're right. They have to beat the bad teams.
That's why this game is so important.
There's no other way, but you need to beat the bad teams. And that's, honestly, we want to see it. I want to have these games that you can sit back and they're up 31 to 14, 31-17. You're not like, oh my God, if they better stop them here. They don't stop them here, they could lose in the last drive. So hopefully we get a W on Monday night, but
that'd be swell.
Yeah, that would be very well. But hey, everyone enjoy it, and we will do what we always do and end it with 2 very
hopeful,
very hopeful and joyful. Go Birds.
Go Birds.
This is Matt Ware. Hey, for all the Eagle content you need, go follow All About the Birds. They do a damn thing. Check them out.
Hey, Eagles fans, I may be in Tampa, but I know where to find the best Eagles content out there. Check out my friends at All About the Birds.
Philadelphia, what's up? This your boy Freddie Mitchell, a.k.a. Fred X. It's all about the bird.
All birds all the time. All birds all the time.
All About the Birds provides you with weekly analysis, game recaps, informative interviews, and it's all birds all